Hello all, and thank you for tuning in to an edition of the Western Sydney Insider. This channel is brought to you by the members of the community and the resourcefulness of a uni student. My name is Emily Casa, and today's topic is focused on how high school students are being prepared for continued studies and career development. In 2012, the Coalition brought in a record of school achievement scheme. The scheme provides a transcript to students continuing on to complete the higher school certificate as an alternative to the Year 10 school certificate. This meant a larger number of students would stay on to complete the high school certificate and receive an ATAR. I wanted to speak to career professionals about this move. After ordeals involving the Gonski report, I couldn't make sense of the government's decision to create more costs with HECS debt and hinder students from entering into full-time work. I managed to get in contact with Patricia Parish. She's the team leader for the Careers and Cooperative Education Unit at the University of Western Sydney. Patricia and her team provide support to university students during study to extend their degree into a career.
Schools are struggling just to meet the extra demand because they've got all these extra kids coming into year 11 and 12 now that never used to be there. A lot of those kids don't want to be there. So they're under a lot of pressure, and are they doing the best that they can for those year 11 and 12 students to prepare them for life beyond school? I really don't think so.
I asked Patricia if she'd noticed any trends coming from students transitioning from high school to university.
From my perspective, I think what we see is that we have the numbers. The numbers are coming through, but they're not necessarily meeting the expectation of employers. So we get feedback from employers who are saying, your students don't have the skills that we hoped they would, in which case they might be blaming the university for that. But I think the other thing that happens is that the kids come into university with poorly prepared professional skills. So I think what schools are good at is preparing kids academically for uni, so they get access to the right subjects, the right curriculum, they know the marks they need to get in their ATAR to get in, etc., etc. So they're able to get into university, and I think often schools feel that their job is done at that point. But I think what we get now, because we've had a big increase in university places in recent years, the funding model, the government has this, agenda to increase the number of educated students in the population. What you get is a lot more kids coming into school who are coming from school to university who don't have the family connections, the networks, the community connections that will help prepare them for university, and they come in with poor expectations. Like, they come in with the wrong expectations about what university means and where it's going to take them. They can be disappointed with what they get at university, so then you get your dropouts, or they don't have the right skill set in terms of self-responsibility. They don't know how to manage their own time. They don't know how to cope with the extra pressure, the social pressures, the financial pressures. I don't know if schools can do a lot to help with that, but I think maybe what the schools are not doing as well as what they might be doing is just giving kids more information about careers and helping them to have realistic goals and realistic expectations.
Indicators from the OECD have shown that the graduation rate for Australians completing a bachelor's degree was 50% in 2010. The Australian Bureau of Statistics reported 25% of Australia's population held a bachelor's degree or higher in 2012. Speaking with Patricia seemed to resonate with how a lot of university students feel about tertiary education. Patricia wished that funds were available to increase improving cooperation with high schools and universities. Sue Sundstrom is the president of the Careers Advisory Association for the New South Wales and ACT. Sue has been president of the association for almost 5 years and has been a careers advisor in high schools for a lot longer. As I spoke with Sue, she started explaining the unique positions of high school advisors and the challenges they're met with in the occupation.
In a state school, supposedly there's a 1 point allocation for careers, but how that is used within a school will really depend on your principal and the decision they make. So that's the first thing you probably need to realise, that there are varying levels in schools in terms of what career time people get allocated, and the non-government schools in particular do not have a large allocation. Some of them might only be a 0.1. When you think about it, a tenth of their job is careers. So it's considering the wide range, when you're talking about the wide range of students that we need to deal with. Now, when you're talking about resources and things, universities in particular are very good at providing us with materials. It's about, I guess, getting that information to students and getting them to think about the whole pathway plan.
I asked Sue about her thoughts on the introduction of the RSA scheme. She was working in a careers department at a high school during the change.
Where parents say, well, they've got to do a HSC, so they might as well get an ATAR. Not every student is suited with being in education or being in a school situation. And I could give you plenty of examples where students have succeeded by leaving school as soon as they could, 14 and 9 months, and doing very well. And the trouble is the system then decided to, or the government then decided to change the rule, not the department, but the government decided to change the rule. And then all of a sudden TAFE put these barriers up and said we won't take these kids anymore, they should be at school. And we're saying, in a lot of cases for these students, TAFE starts them on a progress or a step by step, and they suddenly realise they can achieve. And
it's almost that foundation you were speaking about.
Yeah, that's right. And we were cut out of all that, and that was a nightmare for us. And we're still struggling with it because they say you can't leave school unless you've got a ROSA at year 10. Or you can't get into TAFE unless you've got a ROSA from year 10. You can't do it. And then the apprenticeship system was saying we'd rather have year 12 students because now they've got a licence and they've worked all the silliness out of their heads, if only they knew. But anyway, and all of that sort of stuff. So you've suddenly got all these students doing 11 and 12 who really don't want to be here. They affect the learning of others, but they have to be here because the system says they have to unless they can get a full-time apprenticeship or a full-time job.
Part-time occupations are becoming increasingly prevalent in the Australian job market. Deakin University reported over 56% of graduated students work part-time, and Sue suggests that this begins in high school.
I guess my biggest concern is that students are not actually going to be walking into full-time jobs anymore, and they need to have those career development capabilities to plan their whole life.
State schools have been among the worst affected by funding cuts to education, and in this case, career development.
We as careers advisors are fighting for our life in state schools. That it may be that in some schools there won't be a careers advisor.
Really?
Anymore. And people are thinking that the internet can solve all the problems for the kids.
It's frightening.
It can't. Well, I've got year 12s at the moment. There'll be entry for Wollongong's opened. And the good kids are making appointments to run through the process to make sure they've got it right. And they need that. They can't ask the computer those questions.
Absolutely.
And half of them, even, with some of the steps, they want to make sure they've understood it right, those sorts of things. So it's just on and on, and that's the point I make all the time, that students need to be able to go somewhere where they feel comfortable and discuss these issues.
I asked Sue what careers advisors were doing to combat this.
We get bombarded, but we try and keep on top of it because there's always, something that might be useful for students. If we could just get them to use our websites and things rather than just rely on Facebook.
Yeah.
Good. But, we're moving with times and changing things to try and communicate with them to get the information out there. Because I'm involved with CAA, I get other stuff that other people wouldn't even know about, but we try to get out, as that's why we've built our Careers Advisors Association, and now we've got over 700 members across the state. It's because we try to provide information sources that's sort of very clear and not great long stuff, so that then if they need to go to that, they can click on the link and head off and get that information that they need so that they can best advise their students about all the opportunities that are out there. The federal government keeps saying it, but then they don't fund it. They take away all the funding for career development in Australia, like $16 billion disappeared in the last budget. But they keep saying how important it is and putting out green papers about it as a lifeline thing for all people to have access, and then they take the funding away and you think, geez, mixed messages, guys.
Absolutely.
In terms of that, because it is important. It's a waste of resources if we get, look at your university. All of those students apply for university, some miss out. Now, some of those kids that miss out might have been the best students for that course and really wanted to do it, but somebody had a better mark than them, and then after a certain period they drop out. It's the same with apprenticeships. 45% of apprenticeships never finish. There's been some fabulous programs over the years, and I've been involved in careers now for nearly 30 years, so I've been around for a while. But we've had some fabulous programs, but they never ever stay. You get them funded for a couple of years and then they disappear, and you go, wouldn't it be good if we could just have that back? There was a whole pile of things called Enterprise Australia and things like this, where employers and other people who do certain jobs came in and ran workshops with, say, year 10 and 11 students and really took them through, not talking at them, we won't listen if people talk at them, but doing a series of activities and sort of connecting at the same time. So they were finding out about those people that were working with them in their groups at the same time as they were doing other activities that helped them to sort of explore the whole world out there. And they were fabulous programs, but they'd be funded for a while and then they'd disappear. And you go, well, geez, that's gone again. And there's been some good ones that we've had. But if we could just bundle them all together and say, well, let's do all these things, then it'd be really good if every school at some stage during the year could take their kids out of school for a couple of weeks and just work on some of these things.
The Board of Studies recorded 73,000 students enrolled in the HSC in 2012, with numbers predicted to significantly increase in 2013, with the first cohort of compulsory continuers from Year 10. Sue told me that she believes kids in Australia aren't being taught to compete anymore. She believed if we conditioned our kids with both academic and career skills, they'd have better opportunities when making decisions about their future. I tended to agree with her. This has been Emily Casser for an edition of the Western Sydney Insider. I'd like to extend a very big thank you for the insightful outlook from Patricia and Sue, and thank you to everyone for listening.